Charli, thank you for being on the show. We are going to talk all things women today in the different stages of life, particularly college students who you work with, and then also your podcast, The Hype Squad, all about hyping women and making sure we're celebrating our accomplishments. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
Yeah, we know each other pretty well just from my guest appearance on your podcast and then different Zoom calls we've done and things. So I'm excited for people get to know you better and what you do. Let's start right off with this Hype Squad stuff because tell me what about your career and your experiences made you decide like I need to be a voice for women, supporting women, and not just supporting them in a friendship or quiet way, but like really hyping them up and celebrating wins to the point that you created a whole podcast about it.
Yeah, great question. Well, I have five sisters. I was a labor and delivery nurse, and I feel like my world has always been women. And it's, depending on the chapter of my life, when we're young and we're teenagers, we think that, girls are out to get us and they're competition, and you go through these different seasons of now I need them in my life, right? I feel like that's a natural evolution. And quite honestly, the Hype Squad podcast, the podcast itself was originally just a marketing tool that I needed to advertise my business and just the idea itself. And then I started like deep diving. What do I call it? What is the message? What's the branding? All of that stuff. And I give an assignment to my clients called the Hype List, which is basically a list of achievements and obstacles you overcame. Essentially, a nice swift kick in the butt when you need the reminder of like how amazing you are and all of the things you've done. Because inevitably we all have these low moments where we're not feeling very confident, or our self-esteem is kind of in the tank. And it was really like pick 10 and frame them, put them somewhere in your home on your bathroom mirror, somewhere you're going to remind yourself every day, like, oh yeah, I did that. And so I thought it'd be really cool to use that assignment and kind of create the message behind the podcast. So only having women on who are business owners or professionals, or that we just have something really cool in common that we can talk about. They can teach me something. And I ask everyone that comes on to brag about themselves, be full of themselves for a moment at the end of it. And using that terminology specifically is on purpose,
Right.
because I feel like we all hesitate to brag about ourselves or be full of ourselves. Like it's such a negative connotation as opposed to like, I feel like crap today, or my hair looks
Yeah.
terrible. Like,
Accepting a
oh,
compliment,
don't.
it's hard to do. Yeah.
Exactly. And so I ask everyone to share something from their hype list, which is essentially a brag. And it's so cool to see women light up, or even have to like be truly vulnerable and like, oh my God, this is so hard for me to think of. Like I've had women who have tried to prep their answers, and I'm like, no, 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 no.
Yeah.
I want it to be raw and real in the moment. Obviously, I warn you ahead of time that I'm going to do it because I don't want to catch anyone off guard. But it's been such an incredible opportunity. Obviously, it's been a great marketing tool because I'm able to build some rapport to some extent with people who don't know me, and I can tell a little bit about what I do. But also, like, and you can attest to this, like,
Yeah.
how cool is it to be able to get someone's full attention for 30 minutes, an hour, however long it is, or to have the opportunity to meet people in what other circumstance would I get to do that and have these really cool conversations? So it's
That's
been
how
amazing.
it's really true. And that's how I feel about like this show for years, whether before it was a radio show and now it's a TV show. And I can meet someone on the ferry on my way to Canada who has
Yeah.
a cool story, and then I can invite them to have a conversation with me. And this show is pretty broad. My podcast I'm about to launch is very specific to the other work I'm doing and helping people pitch their story and things like that. So when I think about the conversations that we have sometimes, let's think about women specifically and how hyping each other and being support to each other. I think having a space for that is ideal. And I believe you about it because there are some women we know who talk about supporting other women. They're all about other women. They'll create things around women. And then they're okay as long as the women are just a little bit in their mind, a little less, or doing a little
Mm,
less, or working for them instead of working with them. And I've experienced that in my own personal life. I think we all have.
Mhm.
And it's a toxicity that we tolerate less and less as we get older. But when we're starting out or when we're trying to maintain friendships that maybe don't blend with business, or that maybe the hype isn't mutual, we can say that it is, but it isn't. So when you have clients or you have that mentality of like, I'm going to support women, period, I believe you. And it shines through. And is it based on the experience of having your own hard time with playing well with others? Or is it, you know what I mean? Does it come from you've seen it, so you want to create it. So where does that come from for you?
I mean, I think probably a little bit of all of that. I am the youngest in my family. I have all older sisters, and I think that that definitely probably played a part.
Right.
My mom is a single mom, so I have always been um, on the bandwagon of like independent, badass women who were like taking care of business and um that's always kind of been the mindset. And I'll be honest with you, I think this has actually come up in some of my messaging across the board is I wish I would have fallen in love with female friendships so much earlier in my life. And I think that that's part of my mission, if you will, without being clearly stated, is that if I would have learned in college, and I think this work really presents itself with the work I do with college girls, if I would have understood that we are all in the same boat, that we're all struggling with the same things, it would have, I think, catapulted my level of growth so much early on because in my 30s, I realized, oh God, I need these women. I need strong, confident, independent women to like feed my energy, to feed my soul. And I can remember saying this, and I've said this in so many different ways over the years of like I considered myself a guy's girl. Like when I was in high school, I just thought like, oh, I'll hang out with the guys. The girls are just too dramatic.
Yeah.
I cringe when I think about that mindset, but it was honest. It really was how I felt in the time. And I'm not special.
Based on experience. Yeah. Hmm.
That's how a lot of women were. And it was difficult because there obviously are girls at that stage in your life that are catty and they taint your depiction of women in general for years, right?
Hmm.
And I can still remember those girls' names,
Oh
right? Like
yeah.
they are so concrete in my mind. And
Yeah.
I think I just I want to remind women and young women and grown women that like you're not in competition. You're playing very different games. Like
And
and
even
it
if you
all
are
kind
in
of
competition, there's room for everyone. Like
right.
business
Well,
competition, but in
and I
life,
think
it's not a competition.
I think when I say competition in this context, I'm referring more of to like male attention
Mhm.
competition because
Mhm.
that's kind of how it showed up in adolescence for most of us. Of like, oh, he thinks she's prettier than me, or oh, he wants her to be his girlfriend, not me. And the truth of the matter is that's lingers for like anytime you're single, stuff like that. And I just I don't know. I feel like so much time was wasted, but at the same time, I'm like, well, this was my journey. I was supposed to go on it this way. But honestly, and kind of going back to what you were saying about people representing themselves as being like very, very pro woman and empowerment and such, humility is a real thing. And I think that sometimes in the day and age that we live in now with social media and all this stuff, you can present yourself as whatever you want.
Yeah.
But the proof is in the pudding.
Yeah.
The proof is in, and I've said so many times, like I don't make my clients sign contracts. I don't do like NDAs or anything because I'm not falling under any sort of governing body as like a therapist or a counselor would. But if my reputation is tainted at any point in my professional life, my business is ruined. And that is all it takes for me to remember like, oh, this is this is no plain like I don't even say who I'm working with and some of their names are listed on my website as testimonials. I still will not admit that they are clients of mine. Because to me, that broaches almost like a HIPAA law, which
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
where my mind is ingrained
Right.
as a nurse.
As a nurse. Yeah.
But also, like, I'm the same person right now as I am if you saw me at the grocery store. Like, it's just who I am. And I think it was really difficult for me to show up on any of these platforms because I was afraid that I would pretend to be some other version. And so far, it's been easy, but it's also like you got to remember who you're talking to. Like you're not trying to go viral, or at least I'm not. I'm not trying to go viral. I'm not trying to be famous. Like that's not my intention. My intention is to work with women and support them, and that's it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I've got to figure out how to get in touch with them and get their attention. Sure. So a little bit of it is just like trying a lot of different things and seeing what sticks.
Yeah.
But the people who are not real will be weeded out. Like, I just think that's inevitable.
It's true.
Proof is in the pudding, if
Yeah.
you will.
Yeah. Let's take a break. When we come back, let's talk about the work that you do on campuses, helping young college students start off on the right foot and put systems in place to take good care of themselves in all kinds of settings. We'll be back in just a moment. Okay, Charli, we've been talking about just your Hype Squad podcast and the support you have around rallying women and calling out their brags and making sure that they, speak up to the good things that they're achieving as well. And you're a big cheerleader for them. Tell us about the work that you do on campuses, because I think it's really important to illustrate that some of the work you're doing is foundational from, back, starting out in their early 20s, teens, really, and making sure that they have some of these skills for when they face some of that tough stuff we were talking about and the dynamics of women and friendship and the longevity that it can have, but sometimes removing it from your life if it's toxic.
Sure. Yeah, I like to say that I'm kind of your fun aunt who's old enough to be taken seriously and young and hip enough to where you think it's cool to like hang out with me.
Yeah.
But also I feel a void of all the stuff that you don't want to talk to your mom about, but you also don't want to get the feedback or advice from your friends who are going through the same stuff. So it's almost like kind of a therapist, kind of a fun aunt, kind of a cheerleader in the background who is help, because I only work with 18 and up. So it's building independence and autonomy outside of your parents where they haven't had that yet. I don't talk to their parents. It has to be something that is truly just theirs that we work on together. And I think it's really important, especially when you're moving away to college. So much stuff is happening. And I actually work with a lot of girls who they work with me and a therapist at the same time because we're working on very different things.
Sure.
Like, and some of the stuff that they really want to work on that I find my girls yearning to focus on, they can't attach that to an hour therapy session that they're already doing. So it's future focused, it's goal oriented. We're talking about what major do I need to pick, from all the way to like, how do I have conversations with my roommates? How do I set boundaries, new boundaries with my parents, right? Because now I want to be independent and they're still teaching me or treating me like a child. It covers so much. And then all the way through college to their senior year, how do I interview for jobs? How do I decide if I want to take a gap year? It covers a lot. And I think I remember my coach saying to me when he was helping me formulate this business concept and how I was going to offer to college girls, he said, if my daughter would have had you in college, everything would have been so different, from conversations about consent and sexuality and boys and intimacy and what that looks like now that you've just got free reign and you're living in a dorm room or, an apartment with a bunch of girls, because there's a ton of peer pressure, right? And there's a lot of things.
There's all of that, right?
Sure. Yeah. And it's like the only point of reference you have is your roommates or your parents. And unlike a therapist, I can give you the tough love. Like I can say, whereas like some people are like, I just want you to tell me what to do. Right. Like a therapist can't do that. A therapist is going to say like, well, let's talk about your feelings about it and whatnot, which totally serves a purpose. I'm more of like the tough love cheerleader that I can like, and I'm giving them homework, right? We're practicing conversations. I can't tell you how many times I've had a client here in my office get up and pace around because they're getting ready to send a message on Snapchat and they're stressing out about it. I'm like, do it, do it, do it, do it right now. The difference of like, when are we going to hang out versus are we going to hang out? Or do you want to hang out? Like just the open versus closed, learning how to communicate, right? Figuring out that like, okay, that didn't feel good. So what do I do? What do I do next? How do I not put myself in that position? And I wish I would have had it.
Yeah.
Right. And I think
Yeah.
most people can attest to that.
Yeah, I think too, one of the things we talked about off camera before we got started is just like the safety things and the terrible, horrible things we hear happen on campuses and sororities, fraternities, all kinds of things. And, ideally some of that was learned earlier on, but like you said, you got free reign now. You can do whatever you want. You can go wherever you want. You can get home whenever you want. And I remember being different experiences with friends who found themselves backed against the wall, and in bad situations with guys and at parties and drinking and all those things involved. I remember one time, I don't think I've ever talked about this on my show, but this seems appropriate. But me being at a party and I overdrank and I went to my friend's room to lay down and go to sleep. And I laid down and I thought, oh, I forgot to lock the door to the bedroom. And I had the wherewithal to get up and get myself to the door and lock it and then climb back in the bed. Just because knowing that was a dumb thing to do. That was a risk. That was something that I needed to, like, it was on my mind that I needed to fix. And so just even creating that awareness for young women about just trying to do the best you can to look out for yourself and both look out for your friends in those situations.
100%. I think depending on your college experience, like for me, I didn't go live on campus. I drove back and forth. So my college experience was very different from those who live in a dorm on campus or even like move away to a different city. But I do think that depending on where you're from, like if you're from a small town in a large city, there is this false sense of security that you may carry with you into a bigger city where your intuition is not as keyed in as someone from maybe a larger city who has already been prepared with circumstances like that.
Even use
And
the bus system or like, been
Sure.
like in bigger group settings where you aren't hanging out with the friends you've grown up with since you were, in kindergarten, I mean,
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I think alcohol or just any sort of
altering
uh
substance.
yeah, drugs or otherwise, like all of that is such a huge contributing factor. And like I keep a jar of Dum Dums in my office, like, the little suckers, because I have one client who's been trying to quit vaping for months now.
Mm.
And so I'll give her a handful of Dum Dums and I'm like, look, this is like a party trick. Like you're going to have a Dum Dum. Everybody's going to want one. And instead of passing around a vape, you're now like passing out Dum Dums. And it worked. And she loved it. And now every time she comes in, she gets them. Another thing is like kind of going back to what you won't talk to your moms about, intimacy or safe sex practices, things like that. I think it's a real conversation that a lot of people don't want to have that we're having in this office, right? That because of the nursing background I have, I can give them
Right.
a safe space. I even created like a full script of how, because a lot of this age group are not comfortable talking on the phone, right? So it's like, who do you call and what do you say, right? Okay, this is the questions you're going to ask. You're going to ask about insurance. You're going to ask about like stuff like that. That's just real life that I think a lot of people, especially for college age young people, is they're not really talking about it. Like they're preventing unwanted pregnancy. Okay, well, there's a whole other list of things that come into play there. And so it's really the opportunities are endless for things that they want to talk about and things they want to discuss, but also like how to handle conflict with advisors, right? How to stand up for themselves because they are the younger person in this scenario, but their feelings matter and how to articulate themselves. It's just so much good
So much.
stuff.
Yeah. It's all good stuff. I could have you on for a whole nother half hour. Let's take a break. We'll come back in just a moment. Okay, Charlie, we were finishing up. Like I said, I could have you on for a whole nother half hour. But one of the things we talked about off camera as well is how you get referrals. Like you even had someone refer you from an experience they had with someone who was in the ER for self-harm. And so many kids today have therapy that's part of their self-care. So they're getting that professional care, but maybe parents need to have a place for their kids to go where they can sort through some of the things they don't want to come to their parents about, and then have those conversations with you and maybe bring back to their parents kind of what they've sorted out or made sense of with their fun aunt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think that therapy and coaching are so different, and therapy it serves a huge purpose and is so important and crucial. And I think it's pretty standard for this generation that's already used to that format and already in it for, whatever reason it may be, more comfortable with it. But I also think an hour each week with a therapist, you're working on other stuff, right? And
Yeah.
there's probably a whole host of other things that they're wanting to work on, whether it be like communication or boundaries or accountability or intimacy and consent, things like that. There's so much more that if they are currently working with a therapist, they're not getting to touch on that. And then if you're not in therapy, but you still know that your daughter, and there should be a service like this for men out there too, but I'm not aware of it. So if anyone knows, let me know so I can refer you. Um, but I just think there's such a huge, when your kids go off to college and you're an empty nester, maybe you're not quite yet, like it's a brand new season. And if you have the relationship with your kids where they're calling you and they're needing you for, their own therapy, their own coaching, there's a huge responsibility with that. And I think there is kind of this separation that needs to happen at some point, if possible, where it's like, have the fun stuff with them, right? To where you're not taking the responsibility of trying to help them navigate the drama or whatever, because that's a burden for the parents as well, right? And I just think that having a coach, in my experience, for these girls is transformative, and I think everyone can benefit from coaching. It's just finding the right person to fit you.
Yeah. And I agree. I think that, having, I know that you don't just do it in person, you do it online too. So it's not
Hmm.
like you have to be in the room with them. And I think that having that voice to, like you said, that fun aunt. I mean, there are things that I talked to with my sister about when I was young. And I remember my mom saying to me when I was young, you don't have to tell me, but you have to tell somebody. And
Yes,
she knew that it was my
100%.
sister. And if there was something going on, that I would, my sister would probably tell her, but maybe not. But I mean, there's things that I went to my aunts and my sister about that I would have never felt comfortable talking to my mom. Even today, there are things, that I'm not super comfortable with just because, that it's just this, she's my mom. And some people say, oh, my mom's my best friend. I would say my mom's my best friend, but I'm probably not going to talk to her a lot about sex and other things like that. So
Yeah, there's
sorry, I'm not
different
going to.
boundaries for that
Yeah,
friendship for
exactly.
sure.
Well, thank you for
Mhm.
being here. I've learned so much from you already, and I hope this is helpful to everyone who watched.
This was amazing. Thank you, Lisa. Anytime you want me back, I'll come.